This is a real-life photograph of a modern meathead. What's up, guys? Enkiri here, and today I want to talk a little bit about an Instagram post by Ben Yane where he discussed barbell squatting. Now, I will admit I'm a little bit late to the party here, as the post in question was actually from May, so a few months ago. But I don't follow Ben's page, otherwise I would be forced to commit seppuku on myself. But nonetheless, this post, old as it was, reappeared in my IG feed the other day for some reason, and I'm not gonna lie, it got my panties a little bit wadded up. So here we are. And looking through the post, it does follow what I would consider to be a pretty generic social media fitness formula. You pick a sacred cow that the tides have shifted on a little bit, and then you create a series of pseudo outlandish assertions in order to burn that sacred cow. Assertions that are going to spark outrage only in people like myself, while getting the majority of sheeple who are only tangentially knowledgeable on the very fringes of resistance training to nod along in agreement, because this is what is currently considered to be an edgy opinion, right? And I say pseudo outlandish here because this is actually a very safe target for somebody like Ben to pick on. And in reality, this opinion is not actually edgy at all, given the current landscape on social media fitness. Because the trend right now is one where it's acceptable to argue and assert that the tried and true staples really aren't as effective as what we have been led to believe, and that everybody's a unique little snowflake, and we have to cater the movements that we do to suit all of our vast and myriad personal idiosyncrasies. And we can do this by breaking free from the dogma, right? Squats suck now, man. They don't build muscle in the legs effectively for 90% of the population. They'll just give you tight hips and lower back pain unless you are perfectly built to do them.
Are you tired of clothing that just doesn't keep up with your active lifestyle? Meet Barbell Apparel, the ultimate athletic clothing designed for athletes and lifters like you. Whether you're hitting the gym, crushing PRs, or simply leading an active lifestyle, Barbell Apparel has got you covered. Literally. With every stitch, Barbell Apparel is engineered to offer the perfect fit,
allowing you to move freely and comfortably during your tough workouts.
No more restricted movements or uncomfortable bunching. Just pure, uninterrupted performance. And these clothes aren't just for working out. Their streetwear collection is perfect for your active lifestyle outside of the gym, too. Join the thousands of athletes who've already made the switch to Barbell Apparel and experience the difference for themselves. Unleash your potential with Barbell Apparel, clothing designed for champions.
What I find funny about people like Ben is that they love to throw around the word dogma. You need to break yourself free from the dogma, right? You need to stop doing things that have worked in the past, and instead you need to do these new things that I'm telling you to do. I'm the modern meathead. Essentially, he wants you to replace one set of dogma with another set of dogma. And the reality is, that's actually perfectly fine, right? Dogma is actually a requirement to excel in this game. It's actually a requirement to get farther than most people, to maximize your progress in the long run. In spite of how fitness influencers love to frame it and love to talk about it like it's a bad thing, it's actually a good thing, because it gets you to adhere to a set of principles. And within the framework of those principles, you are able to build yourself up in a focused and directed fashion. Over time, perhaps a shift in dogma, in your own personal dogma, will become a good thing, because it'll allow you to change directions and build up in another way, instead of the one that you have been building up in the past, right? Dogma, a principle or set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true. So Ben wants you to reject the classic lifting dogma and follow the Ben Yane's dogma instead. It's just a little bit ironic is all, because he throws it around on his page, that word, like it's a bad thing. But guiding people to where you see the light, it's all well and dandy, right? That's a perfectly fine thing. The problem is when you start pretending that there aren't also lights appearing all over the place in every other direction as well. That is disingenuous. Anywho, that's a bit tangential, but regarding the post in question, I do want to address a couple of things here, because the primary argument being made by Ben in his post is that barbell squats are a poor quad builder for the vast majority of people. They're just going to give you back pain, and they're going to build your adductors, but not your quads. Now, firstly, barbell squats is a generic as fuck term. It can mean whatever the hell I want it to mean. I'm assuming that he means back squats with a straight bar, what we generally think of when we just throw around the term squats, right? That doesn't address bar positioning either, for one thing, but maybe he would also include the SSB in that category. That is, after all, a barbell, but it is a bar that drastically alters the squat movement pattern. Maybe he would also include high bar versus low bar designations in this equation, but those differences in bar positioning also drastically alter the squat pattern across and within individuals. Maybe he would also include front squats. Those use a barbell, right? But a front squat is certainly not a back squat, at least not in my experience anyway. And then what about box squats? What about pin squats? What about Anderson squats? What about tempo and pause work? What about elevating the heels? What about elevating the heels with the SSB and squatting to pins? What about zombie front squats? One of my favorites, done to a box. See, there's a million and one ways that we can take the term barbell squat and break it down into derivative after derivative, and eventually, once you find enough of those variations, it's actually pretty easy to find a whole bunch of variants that work well for most people. In fact, and kind of counter to what I've just been arguing, regressing back to the original point, I am going to go out on a limb and say that I have never, I guess it's not really a limb because it's the truth, but I have never personally coached somebody who I could not teach to acquire a solid standard back squat using a straight bar. Just a plain old barbell squat. The thing that Ben here is saying is overrated for 90% of the population. But, you know, it really just takes a modicum of work ethic to achieve that. So with that in mind, even if I agree that standard straight bar back squats, I guess probably high bar is what he's primarily referring to in the post. But again, who the fuck knows, because the post is so generic as to be meaningless. But even if I agree that these squats were overrated for 90% of the population, which I don't, because I currently coach multiple long leg, long femured lifters to squat very well. And even these people don't represent nearly 90% of the population, not even close to it, but whatever. Even if I agreed, even if these people couldn't perform a standard barbell squat well, even if it was a physiological impossibility, this whole entire post would still be patent bullshit, because it is damn near impossible to not make 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 of those other variations that I discussed above work very well for anybody who has even a modicum of work ethic and wants to do reasonably well in the gym and is willing to invest in that. But you know what? Let's disregard all of that. Let's pretend for just a minute that his statements and his posts are 100% true, and that every single one of the movements that I talked about are overrated for the vast majority of people. For 90% of people, these squat variations, none of them are effective muscle builders in the legs unless you have absolutely perfect squat proportions, and if you don't, they just give you crippling lower back pain. Again, unless you fit into that tiny little narrow category of people that Ben has decided upon. Assuming all of that is 100% true, which it's not, this entire post is still patent bullshit. And I will explain why. Because there is more to squatting than just building muscle in the legs. It has become a tired trope on social media fitness, and everything we do in the gym has to somehow point back to muscular hypertrophy as being the end-all be-all reason for training, the end-all be-all reason for a particular individual to do a particular exercise. Building muscle is great. Right? I love building muscle. Being jacked is cool. It's a healthy thing as you age, and it should be a component of all of our goal sets. But it should not be the end-all, be-all of your training. The potential benefits that can be garnered from resistance training are myriad. They include things like power development, improved force production, getting stronger, a sharper nervous system, greater bone density, better joint mobility, all that among a million other things. And when you relegate yourself to hypertrophy as being the end-all be-all of everything, if something doesn't efficiently work you towards that particular end, then your mindset is simply to discard it. You ultimately end up missing out on the majority of the benefits that the gym has to offer. When you have decided that everything that you do in the gym must work around you, rather than deciding that maybe, just maybe, it might be a good or helpful idea to try to enhance the capacity of your body to be able to work around those sorts of things or within more strict confines that may not be quite as comfortable for you all the time, you end up missing out on the majority of benefits that the gym has to offer. I don't care if Ben is right about squats being a poor choice for leg hypertrophy for 90% of people. He's not. But even if he was, it still wouldn't fucking matter, because the global benefits of learning how to squat well, mastering that pattern, and then executing it in a variety of ways consistently over time extend far beyond the narrow and myopic realm of muscular hypertrophy above all else. This is my problem with people like Ben. They feed you absolutism in disguise. They hide behind science and pretend to give you nuanced takes while just giving you another form of absolutism, another form of dogma. Reject the old dogma and take mine instead. They frame their content as if it's the one true truth, the truest truth of all when it comes to resistance training, even though they are looking at resistance training from the singular vantage point of muscular hypertrophy and nothing else. But they don't make that context clear. They throw it in as a disclaimer, a footnote, but it is not a focal point. And with that, you end up dissuading people whose cumulative goal set exists outside of that realm or along that realm, but in broader strokes beyond it. You dissuade those people from doing things that may be beneficial for them. You end up dissuading people whose long-term health and functionality may be benefited from doing things that exist outside of that realm, right? Because this type of content is popular, man. People love seeing an asshole shoot down another asshole. People love seeing an asshole make a big outlandish claim like squats don't build muscle. But you're just trading one dictator for another, one absolutist ideology for another. It ain't it, bro. Look, if your back hurts from squatting, chances are your squat pattern is shitty, you don't know how to brace well, your programming sucks, or some combination of all these three things. But this is basic stuff, man. It is literally lifting 101. If your programming sucks, then fix it. Load management issues are probably the greatest contributing factor to aches and pains in lifters. That includes lifting too heavy too often, doing more volume than you are equipped to handle, or doing both those aforementioned things while living a lifestyle that is not congruent to it, i.e. not eating well enough or sleeping well enough to merit such an intense training schedule. But all these things are you problems. They are not squat problems. If the issue is technical, then learn how to fucking brace, dude, for starters. Don't listen to Athlete X.
Breathe out and tighten down. Contract your abs forcefully. Be conscious of how hard you're contracting your abs.
That is not how you brace. In fact, that is anti-bracing. And film yourself squatting. Most people think that they are moving well until they actually see themselves moving on camera. Looking at yourself in the mirror does not count and is actually detrimental. Film yourself. Seeing yourself on video allows you to learn what you are doing, allows you to learn how what you are doing objectively feels subjectively, right? And then by cross-comparing those two things against each other, over time, eventually you will be able to feel internally what a solid, smooth, and proper squat pattern looks like on the outside, even without actually having to see it anymore. But again, these are all you issues, not squat issues. We can't blame the squat as being an overrated or bad exercise when most people don't even know how to fucking do it. And it's not because they're physiologically incapable of doing it, it's because they just never really learned how. They likely lack proper bracing ability, which creates a governor on the body. They also likely lack adequate joint mobility around the primary joints, which prevents you from hitting solid positions. And then with all that, they don't know how to program well. And having shitty programming is going to prevent you from mastering the motor pattern of the squat, because shitty programming never gives you the chance to master a complex movement like that. And before I go, I just want to make one final point, and that is about relative femur lengths, as this is pretty much the entire basis of Ben's post and the logic that he uses about femur lengths and body proportions and how that affects somebody's ability to squat. And the thing is, by the very nature of averages, most people will in fact have a femur length that is average relative to their torso and their lower leg. And again, these are proportions, right? It is the length of the femur, the length of the tibia, the length of the torso, and how much each of those segments makes up of the total body height. And in terms of these percentages, most people's proportions are simply going to be average. Most people, the vast majority of people, will not fall into the categories that he discusses here. That is just the nature of averages. And those that do fall into these categories, most of them will only fall into them mildly, right? That is, most people will only have slightly shorter than average femurs or slightly longer than average femurs, again, as a percentage of total height, rather than being in these categories to an extreme degree, one side or the other, right? And using extreme fringe cases to prove a point about 90% of people, that is a fallacy. And what this means is that your squatting woes are probably not due to your proportions. They are due to your piss poor mobility and your piss poor patterning, right? We all sit a hell of a lot of time from the time that we are children, and most of us don't actually ever do shit in terms of physical activity to undo any of that. If you've been sitting on your ass all day long for the last 10 years, your mobility is going to fall into the category of stiff as fuck, and that is going to take real effort to gradually undo. You combine that with experiencing 0 effective reps in your lifetime on a complex pattern like the squat due to shitty programming, and then the result is somebody who can't squat for shit. Now, you can choose to fix these patterning and mobility issues or not. That's your prerogative. You can buy Ben's Modern Meathead dogma instead and go that route instead. It's your choice either way. But don't sit there and say, I can't. I'm not built that way. Because that is a cop-out based on a fallacy from a dude who did not think shit through before he made that post. Personally, believe it or not, even though I am not a tall dude, my femurs are actually long relative to my torso. My torso is short relative to my femurs, again, as a total percentage of my height. Not by much, right? I'm not one of those fringe examples, but I am just off to the side a little bit. Yet, I can squat taint to floor without any issues. I couldn't always do that. It took me a work in progress over years to be able to accomplish it. But now that I can load it up heavy as hell, and it's very comfortable for me. And actually, my hips and my back feel better now, much better now than they did when I couldn't and didn't squat ATG. So that is food for thought. And I would encourage Ben to rethink his content style. Now that he has built himself up a large platform and a large voice to speak it from, I would encourage him to rethink the style of posts that he makes. He doesn't need to use that form of clickbait crap anymore, because these sorts of things simply act as a form of discouragement. The types of posts like the one I'm talking about today, they discourage people from putting in valuable work by convincing them that their efforts are fruitless before they have even started or tried, because he's telling them that they are not built for those efforts to begin with. These sorts of things play pretend at nuance while simply asserting their own dogma as the one true truth in order to replace the existing dogma. They miss the forest for the trees when it comes to overall fitness and resistance training by placing muscular hypertrophy onto the absolute highest mantle of all and relegating every other benefit that you can possibly get from resistance training into the category of such an afterthought that it need not even be considered. But that is a disservice to the thousands upon thousands of people that this dude just convinced to stop squatting. If you don't want to squat, then don't squat. But don't act like you are smarter than everybody else because you chose to play the game on easy mode. If you play the game on easy mode, then when you beat it, you get all the skills that beating the game on easy mode confers. Remember that. That's all I got for today, guys. If you found this video informative, please share it around. Help spread the good word. Remember to smash the like button before you go. Leave me some love in the comments down below. And check out EnkiriEliteFitness.com for online coaching and training programs. Because if your back hurts from squatting, a proper training program with proper load management might be all that you need. Keep training hard, and I will catch you guys next time.